I try to instill curiosity in all of you. I wanted you to question everything, question everybody, not be accepting of anyone and anyone's opinion without questioning them. That's what I want.
Yeah. Welcome to another episode of Love, Growth, and Narratives. I'm Fredrick.
And I'm Tiffany.
And in today's episode, we're doing this a little bit different. We decided that we wanted to bring our parents into the conversation. And so as you can see, we're not in our usual living room at home. We're actually at my mother-in-law, Cynthia's place. And you'll see that my parents are also at their place in Maryland. And so we wanted to talk about what they went through in terms of raising us, as well as raising kids in the 70s and 80s, as opposed to what we deal with now and all of those types of things. And all right, so we have our parents here. We're going to let them introduce themselves. And since we're at Cynthia's place, we will start off with my mother-in-law.
Hi, I'm Cynthia Johnson. And yes, he is my son-in-law.
And proud to be that. And then we'll go out to Maryland, to my parents.
I am Rachel Strickland Cook, Frederick's mother.
I'm Freddie Cook, Frederick's father.
Thank you so much. And so let's just start off talking about, raising us. And it could be raising us in particular, or what you dealt with, what you saw in terms of raising kids in the 70s and 80s. What were the particular challenges in that as opposed to now? And that's for either of the three of you.
They don't seem to go out, and meet together and just sit down and talk. We used to do that. We used to play cards, of course, and checkers and things like that. But we still used to talk to each other. We used to take a break, and everybody would swing on this tree that was in the back of the building where I grew up, weeping willow, and it was so long, the leaves. And that's what we do. We would just go back and forth for there, and our parents knew that we needed to be in the house when the street lights came on, so they didn't bother us. They let us play. Of course, it was around the building that I'm talking about. But
in terms of raising Tiffany in the 70s and 80s, what do you think was different about that as opposed to now?
As Tiffany could tell you, we were really close. And because I didn't really have any family out here, I want her to be able to tell me everything, which she did. No matter what, she might have had some secrets, but basically, we were very close. She's different than me. She's very conservative, and I'm a little hippie. But the difference now, I can only look at Joseph and say something about the difference now. Mm-hmm. They kind of, Tiffany stayed in her room, but for a different reason. They kind of stay in their rooms and decorate themselves. And I think it's different because they don't really go out like we used to. But again, everything is so expensive. It's hard to go out.
Yeah, appreciate that. And to my parents, did you want to talk about raising either myself or, Gretchen in the 70s and 80s, or Elon in the 80s and 90s as opposed to now?
I find it to be quite different because we didn't have the technology earlier when you all were growing up. So I think as far as comparing it to parents of today, we spent and paid a lot more attention to the children and what the children were saying and what the children were doing and what we wanted. And there was not a lot of literature. We didn't have Google where we could look up information to see if you had a temperature or what could be causing that. We had to call doctors and nurses and rush to emergency rooms. And just on my part, I did a lot of what my parents did and my family did. I kind of followed along with a lot of what our parents did. And Fred and I did used to talk about certain things on how to raise the children, what kind of environment we wanted them to grow up in the home. We definitely wanted an educational environment where they would learn a lot, where they would grow up and be very articulate and could meet any situation verbally, because we tried to teach them not to get into fighting, fist fighting, physical fighting. And
well, I don't know about that, Ma. You did teach us a lot about physical fighting as well, so.
I did. Oh, yes. Okay.
The main difference I see is back when I was a child, children were to be seen and not heard.
Mm-hmm.
And children would never dispute grown-ups. And definitely they're not your parents.
Mm-hmm.
When they said something, you nodded okay and went along with it. You did not dispute it. Whether you agreed or disagreed, you did not dispute it. When Gretchen, you and Gretchen came along, there was, we allowed you guys to rebut,
Mm-hmm.
but you only had a chance to rebut us once or twice. And if we still said, okay, this is the decision, then you must abide by that decision. We gave you a chance
Yep.
to change our minds. Now, step forward to today. Today you have to negotiate with toddlers. There's no ordering them around. It's all, can we do this and shall we not do that? And it's altogether different than when I was a child.
Yeah, and I appreciate how you let us, at least try to convince you otherwise. And I probably took advantage of that more than I should.
Yeah.
Well, I'd like to also speak to being raised, in the 70s and raised by my mom. And I do remember my mom supporting everything that I wanted to try. Whatever it was, she gave me a shot at it and was behind me fully. And she let me be myself. And yet we are different. I'm not sure I'm conservative, but I do kind of think things through before I do it. I try to anyway.
You're definitely not a hippie.
But I do appreciate all the fun things that we did together. Like my mom taught me to read way before kindergarten came around, so I could read when I was 3. And we would paint together, paint the walls of my bedroom. She would make my cakes. So whatever I was into, if I was into trains, I had a train cake. I've been into purple ever since I was little. So I had a purple cake. I just remember doing a lot of fun things, even though it was just the two of us. I didn't grow up with my dad. And we just did a lot. We did yoga. We listened to all kinds of music together. She had me reading Stephen King without me even knowing what I was reading about, but just to practice reading. So it was just, that was great. I appreciate all of that fun moments that I had with my mom that as a teacher, I don't see that my students have those kind of moments. They're being taken somewhere else to be entertained, often to different places, which is fun too. But I just remember my mom taking the time to make a cute fancy cake as opposed to go buy one. And that kind of stuff really stuck out to me because it's just like, I think what you said, Rachel, the time, people spent more time with their kids than maybe today.
Mm-hmm.
So I appreciate that time was spent with me.
And when Elon came around in the 80s, 84 exact, children were allowed to be a little bit more, I guess, verbal sometimes with their parents, questioning things. And because we had raised two, well, not raised fully, but we had two teenagers by the time Elon was born, and they were good kids. They were fine and safe. We figured that we had done something right. Mm-hmm. And so it was okay to kind of ease off a little bit. And then Frederick and Gretchen would say, "Oh, would you treat her like a grandchild?" Well, we were older and they were older. And we saw we didn't have to be quite as strict as maybe we had been before with some things in the home, but we did always want to spend more time with our kids. Sometimes they didn't want to be with us. They wanted to be with their friends, and we would take them to the mall to be with them, but they wanted us to get lost so they could go be with their friends, and they didn't want us to even speak to them while we're in the mall, but they didn't want anybody to know that their parents were there at the same time. So we tried to get them a lot of different places and be attentive to what they wanted and what was happening at the time in the environment, even though some of those things we were not allowed to do, but we tried to be some little bit up to date parents.
Right.
Yeah. And so I think I also want to ask Cynthia, in terms of raising Tiffany in particular, especially as she got into her teen years and wanted to get out and about, the difference you feel now, because back then you couldn't reach her once she left out the door. And the nervousness behind that, whereas now, you could call someone on their cell phone and tell them to come home. How did you deal with that?
Tiffany very early had a giant phone that you had to pull the what you call it, antenna first. Mm-hmm. And although she never called me,
that was as an adult though. I didn't have the cell phone as a kid.
Well, unfortunately, she had to become a latchkey child because I could only find a job part-time. But I don't know. She loved music, and she knows the music that I grew up with. So that's great. When something comes on and she starts singing, I look at her, but she knows it. And then she had her own music. One thing that drove me crazy is that she would put on one song and play it over and over and over. And that was somebody Campbell.
Mm-hmm. Well, my mom does that as well. So, but going back to how Frederick's question of when I would go out as a teen and there was no cell phone, like you couldn't get a hold of me. How did you handle that?
I just tell you what time to be home, just like my parents did.
So you just expected her to make it through the door. There were never nights that you were worried that she wouldn't be okay or anything like that, or
no. She would tell me where they were going. The only thing that scared me is that real many dresses were in during that time, and they looked a lot different than I did. But no, I actually trusted everything she did. Only once the car broke down that she had, and I had a friend go and start it up. But I always knew where she was, so I didn't worry about her.
Yeah. And so to my parents, because I know my mother in particular worried a lot, every time we left the house. How did you deal with that as opposed to the way things are now?
A lot of times I followed you till you got to where you were supposed to be. And then
I didn't know that. I didn't know that.
Yes, and but especially when you would ride off on your bicycle, and when we were living in New Jersey, and you had to ride through that street that hadn't been paved yet to get to the next neighborhood to Lance's house.
Yep.
Oh, I followed you. I was right behind you watching. And
I had no idea.
remember, and as teenagers, when you all went places, most of the time we drove you.
Yeah.
And we picked you up, and we would pick your friends up at the same time because we
remember that.
wanted to make sure you all got there safely and came. And many times I went in to meet adults who were there.
Yes.
And every now and then I would say, "Do you need any extra help? You need me to stay?" And they were like, "No, you can come now." Because I didn't mind helping to serve the food or fix the food or whatever, because I wanted to make sure everything was okay. And the one time, well, twice, they were not good situations when we allowed Gretchen to go to a party with a friend of hers, and it was an exclusive party. And the teenage boy at high school had given out invitations, but then he ran out and he said, "Oh, but just come. You're still invited. I don't have any more." I don't know if you remember this one, Fredrick. And so she went, and her friend's mother picked them up and took them. And the mother and I had a conversation before the party. She was going to go in. She was going to meet everybody. She was going to make sure they got in. But what happened was the lady picked them up. She took them to the party and drove away. And her daughter had an invitation and Gretchen didn't. So they did not let her in. And her daughter, who was not a very good friend, went in the party. And Gretchen's left outside. So Gretchen had to walk, and she was over in the Wild Lake, I've forgotten Wild Lake, what you call it, area. Yeah. And she had to walk to a 7-Eleven, find a phone booth, and call us so we could come pick her up. So that really bothered me, because I'm thinking of all the things that could have happened to her while she's walking from that person's house to the 7-Eleven for the phone booth. And what had happened was the young man, the teenager who invited them, was not on the door. His sisters were on the door, so his sisters didn't know Gretchen. If he had been there, and she said, I kept telling them to tell him to come to the door to verify that he had invited me, and the sisters wouldn't move. They said, "Nope, you don't have an invitation, you don't get in." So I had quite a conversation with the mother the next day, because she didn't follow through with what she had said she was going to do.
Yeah.
And then the other situation was when Fredrick wanted to go to the movies with his friends, Melvin, I think his name was Melvin. No, Kevin.
Kevin.
Kevin. And we always took them and picked them up. He says, "I'm 16 years old. You all still driving me. I can get to these parties by myself," and blah, blah, blah. And it's safe here and blah, blah, blah. But that's the problem. A lot of people feel that once you move in a certain neighborhood, it's so safe that you don't have to worry anymore. You can leave your doors unlocked. But that's not true. And it's never been true for us. But anyway, so we let him walk over to Kevin's grandmother's, who didn't live too far from us. And we had these bike paths here where we live, and the kids can go through the paths that maybe used to be safe back then, but they're not anymore. And so he went, no, you dropped them off at Kevin's. I think Dad had dropped them off at Kevin's, and they walked to the movies, which were, 3 or 4 blocks away?
Yeah.
They had to cross a very busy street, and we're trying to trust them because I'm scared sick. Then they got to the movies okay. They were sitting in the movies okay. And I had a friend, an adult friend who's close to me, saw you in the movies and was saying that you all were acting silly and stuff in the movie. And then you came out. So they're walking back to his friend's grandmother's house. And I think Daddy was going to pick him up after that. And then the whole world just fell out. These kids came and attacked them, wanted to know who they were. And these people Fredrick walked to the movies with he thought those were his friends. And a similar situation happened when these people pulled up in a car and wanted to fight or beat up somebody. They got Fredrick because the other guy,
the target of it. I was the target of it.
yes.
Yes.
And so the 2 times when we thought we would give you a little liberty, and so that really hurt me. I still think of those situations, and I guess maybe those kinds of things happen to a lot of kids along with the parents are not there, but then we were trying to hold on to your safety and growing up and enjoying life, and then sometimes it's not always. As parents, sometimes we look back and feel maybe we didn't make the right decision. Maybe we didn't know any better.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember that night because we went to see Eddie Murphy Raw. I remember that night, and then my father had to take me to the hospital, and it was a whole big thing that happened after that. But if there were cell phones and social media, I'm sure that would have been different. Of course, one of those guys, instead of beating me up, may have just pulled out his camera phone and started recording instead. So maybe I would have fewer people beating me up. But yeah. Dad, you got any words on that?
Well, I felt uncomfortable, of course, but I was the unofficial chauffeur among my kids' friends.
Yeah.
Their parents trusted me more than I trusted them. So I was expected to bring their kids home. And sometimes it bothered me because I would bring their kids home to a dark house, and I did not like that. I did not like the child going into a dark home because I felt responsible, So I would always tell the kid, look, you go inside and turn a light on, and you come back to the front door, and you let me know that everything is okay. Okay, if you don't do that, then I'm coming in.
Yeah,
but we had to do that.
Yeah.
He also stayed up whenever you all went places.
Couldn't sleep.
He was the one that stayed up.
Couldn't sleep.
Until you got home.
Always.
Yeah.
Always.
Which by the way, came in handy.
I don't care how old you are. When you're staying in our house and you're out for the evening, you can be 45, 50 years old, but I'm going to stay up and wait on you because it's just, I can't go to sleep until you're back because I worry.
Yeah. Yeah. And that came in handy because since you stayed up late, you normally didn't go to bed till about 2:00 in the morning. Yeah. You would be the one to come pick us up from the parties.
Yeah.
Well, that's some powerful stuff. I don't know how I would behave. Well, I do kind of know. I mean, as a step parent, I don't feel really comfortable. I worry when Joseph is out and where he's at. He wants to go across the street to Target. We're like, no, 7-Eleven, no, not safe. Sorry. We're gonna stay in our little bubble. So moving on to another question. I'm going to start asking this. I'll ask your parents. You can ask me.
Okay.
So I'll ask you, what are 3 words that describe, you just move things around. Okay. What are 3 words that describe Fredrick as a kid?
As a kid?
Yes.
Hungry. He was so good. He would, when he got old enough, especially like in middle school, high school, he didn't want to go with me to the grocery store no more. So he and Gretchen would stay home. Sometimes they were with Elon. And when I get back, he always was standing there to help me unload the car. And he was taking inventory as we put the groceries away.
I've seen Fredrick eat 5 hamburgers and then order a large pizza.
and then make brownies.
Yes. And I was still skinny back then too.
And still skinny. Where is it going? annoying. But he also was never still. He was always moving. Uh, Another word to me, all along as a young child, he was very attached to me and didn't like going to other people at all, including his grandmother, Bubby. And so one day, when we had just moved back to, not my phone, and when we had just moved back to Maryland, Atlanta, he would just come pick him up and take him crying. And then he finally got used to her, knowing that she was going to take him anyway. That was his grandmother. It was okay to go with her. Defiant in the doctor's office, never wanting shots and things like that. It would take three people, the nurse and an assistant and myself, to hold him down. But I told his father I was not taking him anymore. When he took him to the doctor, he sat there like a little man and didn't cry at all. Loved his friends and always wanted to be with them and hang out with them and do things with them. And I tried to teach my children to want to be different. You don't want to be like other people. Have your own ideas about how you want to be, how you want to look, your style of things. And but I guess at some ages, kids just want to be like other people to be accepted, I guess, or to be a part of the gang or the group or the tribe or the whatever it was back then. And he loved his friends.
I did. Too much. But, yeah. So is that 3 words or?
3. I might have gone over.
All right. So Cynthia, 3 words to describe your daughter Tiffany back then.
Pretty.
And still.
Bougie.
And still.
And wonderful.
And still. So, Cynthia, how do you think parenting was easier back then than it is now?
Oh, because my dad worked and my mother stayed at home. So when we got out of school, we had to go straight home. With Tiffany, after my brother left us in Berkeley, there was nothing I could do. I had to work to pay rent. But I only found a part-time job, and she had the key around her neck. As soon as she got there, she had to call me. So I know that she was inside and no more going outside. She had a friend, that lived down the street that used to stay with her. They would stay together.
But is that what made it easier than maybe if you were raising her today?
No, because you have to get a sitter if you're working. And they cost a lot.
Yeah.
They cost a lot monthly. Or I could ship her to your parents.
That would have been fun.
What do you think is the most important value that you wanted instilled in us, and you think that we did it? You're proud of it.
I think for me, I wanted you to be relaxed knowing that you could talk to me about anything. That was very important to me. And she even asked me one time if she could skip school. So, and who asked their mother that?
I didn't ask my mother that. No.
Yeah, so, trustworthy is what I could say. I don't know about kids now. No offense to Joseph, but I don't know a lot of kids now. I don't see them, or if they're on Facebook, or they're crazy. TikTok is really crazy.
Yeah.
So I get a chance to do that.
So, Ma, what do you think about that?
I wanted you to be individuals. And as I had said earlier, I did not want you to follow along with other people and their opinions. And your father challenged you all the time. So you would have your own opinions and you would be thinkers and you would be aware of what was going on in the world and around you, but also in the world. So you could be thinking about all these things as you're growing up, and how do you fit within that, and how do we fit within that, and are we being treated fairly in this world? And always, because you were around so many children of other races and cultures, that you were just as good or better as them. So that's why I wanted you to be individuals and to think as an individual what's best for you.
Yeah. And I wanted to ask my father a question, because what my mother touched on, I think was one of the greatest differentiators with, myself, my sisters, and a lot of people that we were around, was that you challenged us. You created so much skepticism in us, which then led us to not, as we got older, to not follow the crowd. Can you speak to how important that is for kids?
I try to instill curiosity in all of you. I wanted you to question everything, question everybody, not be accepting of anyone and anyone's opinion without questioning them. That's what I wanted.
Yeah.
I wanted kids who would question authority. I wanted kids who would question opinions. I wanted kids who would at least look at the front page of the front of the local newspaper, at least know what's going on. Even if you didn't read what was going on, at least look at the front page and get a good idea as to what's happening every day. That's what I wanted from my kids. I wanted you to question. I wanted curiosity. I wanted curious kids.
And we are. We are.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Just don't question us.
We did that too. We did that too.
Fredrick has, he and I, like when he used to take me to the doctor, we'd be bumping heads on different things. But he listened to a lot of places that I don't listen to. Sometimes when I'm talking to him, mine is just based on my opinion, because how people acted from way back when we came from Africa to now. But he always tell me no. So he's partly my parent. Nothing like teaching, but not just saying it and not paying attention to them anymore. I like that. I like that he questions my thoughts. Of course, they never change, but
I question my own thoughts. So
I guess the question now is, the question would be different for each of us, but Mom, was I a difficult kid to raise at any point in the time you were raising me, or even up to now? Which I know you would say I'm difficult now, but would you say growing up that I was a difficult child, or were there certain areas that you found were difficult?
actually, no. You always looked at things and read things. So even though, like, you stayed for a while in your room, there was nothing that you couldn't do on the outside. I didn't see anything wrong with you with growing up. That's why I was so liberal with you. And you never disappointed me with me having that liberal thoughts about you.
Mm-hmm.
There are things that kids want to do, even me, that I didn't do or should not have done, let's say. I grew up in a kind of hippie thing, and we like to listen to music and smoke some weed. So when she told me she wanted to smoke weed, I said, not unless you smoke it with me, so I know how you would act. So I know she doesn't even do that anymore. Right?
Didn't do anything to me. Didn't do anything to me.
So in terms of my parents, I'm sure they could tell a million stories about how difficult it was to raise me, but were there some specific things that you wanted to talk about the difficulty of raising me, about the things that I did?
Well, I'll start off with that.